The story at 11.
From ABC News, around the world and into your home, the stories that touch your life. With Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters, lawsuits, huge settlements. But business says that we pay every day, that many activities cost more, that in many areas new products are held back because companies fear they'll be sued.
You may be entitled to compensation.
Business says it's costing America dearly.
Products not introduced. Jobs not created.
John Stossel lets them make their case. Lawsuit.
Do you remember seeing these stories on 2020? Coffee pots that burst into flames, seat belts that can kill you, or heart valves that can snap in two. Well, over the years, we've reported on a lot of products that can cause injury or even death. And often, we gather key information from studying lawsuits. Now, there's no question that such suits have helped to make products safer and get some dangerous ones off the market. But it's also true that the cash awards handed down almost amount to a safety tax, a tax we all pay. Tonight, John Stossel offers a different perspective.
Football helmets have doubled in price. The cost of vaccines more than tripled. You may not know that you pay more for everything from ladders to ice skating to pay for something called the tort liability system.
If you are injured in a slip and fall accident, don't assume it's just your bad luck.
We didn't know that in some cases it was possible to sue for his pain and suffering.
If you've been hurt in an accident, find out what your rights are.
Every day, personal injury lawyers run ads that say they'll go to court if necessary to convince a jury that someone should pay you for your pain.
You may be entitled to compensation.
Sometimes they succeed.
A man who sued the maker of the arthritis drug Oroflex has been awarded $6 million by a...
The big awards get publicity. Less publicized is the cost of suing. That's what this story's about. No, this victim won't get $400,000. First, expenses come out. Then the lawyers take their cut of the safety tax. As a result, this study shows that most tort liability money spent goes not to the victims. It goes to pay for lawyering. Some judges have become upset about it. Richard Neely is a West Virginia Supreme Court justice who often decides liability cases.
The system is flawed. About 70% of product liability dollars get consumed in the litigation process itself.
It's how you present the case.
Here's a group of people who like the system.
Free personal consultation.
This is a convention of personal injury lawyers. Here they learn about services designed to help them win bigger verdicts.
People win more if they use your tapes?
I've been told by many attorneys that they can expect at least 40 to 50% higher return if they have good demonstrative evidence, and they consider this one of the best forms.
Personal injury lawyers say all this suing is good for America because it inspires companies to be safer. Former president of the Trial Lawyers Association, Bill Wagner.
The threat of lawsuits make them say, we want to correct the problem. We want to save lives, because it costs money if we don't. That's the whole basic system.
And the system works well?
I think it works very well overall, yes.
Really?
I certainly do. Do you have some complaints?
It costs so much that well, when the person gets a buck, you get a buck. That seems expensive.
You know, we hear that all the time, but a significant number of cases are settled and concluded just because the system exists without ever a lawyer being involved.
But isn't it expensive when a lawyer does get involved?
It is expensive in some circumstances, yes. Is it fair? Most of the times, yes. Safety costs a lot of money.
Just how much may surprise you? Tort suits have had a far-reaching effect on American life. The Ohio State Patrol operates an aerial police force. The troopers rely on Cessna airplanes for their patrols because these planes have a unique high-wing design that gives the police a better view.
11 o'clock, 4 miles.
It's hard to measure how many lives these flights have saved in pursuing criminals, directing rescues, or just spotting drivers in trouble.
We're in the business of looking down. That's what we do. The Cessna airplane is the only airplane that'll do the job.
But these days, they don't fly as often as they'd like.
How much longer we got before this rate applies, Jerry?
About 2 hours. Right now, today, I am short 4 airplanes. And we're just not providing the service that we're normally able to provide because we're short of airplanes.
They're short because Cessna won't make these planes anymore. Here in Kansas, they still build these big million-dollar jets. But Cessna Chairman Russ Myers says the exorbitant cost of litigation has forced him to stop making the small planes the Ohio State Troopers and so many others want. He says it's a business killed by lawsuits.
We couldn't afford to build small airplanes with the cost of product liability the way it is today.
Maybe it's good that you're not making these because a one-engine aircraft, I would think, is more likely to crash. It is a dangerous product.
No, that's not true, John. They're not more dangerous. There's nothing unsafe about a single-engine aircraft.
Still, they do crash, and most of the time, when they do, Cessna gets sued. Even as in this case, when the pilot was drunk, when government investigators said the crash was the pilot's fault. Cessna gets sued anyway.
It's been in litigation for 6 years, and we...
You expect to win that case?
Yes, you bet.
But it still costs you how much?
Oh, if it goes to trial, somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million.
Already you've spent several hundred?
We've spent about $250,000.
Now, if the pilot was drunk, why would they sue? Well, why not take a shot? Maybe the company will settle just to cut its legal costs. And if it does get to court, well, you never know what a jury might do. The jury will look at a victim who clearly needs help and a company that can clearly afford to pay.
The typical profile of a product liability suit is that you have an in-state plaintiff, an in-state judge, an in-state jury, in-state witnesses, in-state spectators, and an out-of-state defendant. Inevitably, the tendency of that system is to do in the out-of-state defendant. I've often said in an ironic way that as a state appellate judge, as long as I am allowed to redistribute wealth from out-of-state defendants to in-state plaintiffs who elect me, are my friends, are my children's playmates, I will continue to do so.
What's this done to your business?
It's destroyed our business.
What do you mean?
It's totally destroyed the small airplane business.
In the 60s, Cessna was the world leader in small aircraft manufacturing. Those days are gone.
We've sold about 3 facilities. We've closed 1 facility. We've gone from 21,000 employees to 4. We are no longer making small airplanes. We used to make 15,000 a year. Now we're making 0.
All because of liability?
Today, yes.
And there's a ripple effect. Often when Cessna's sued, its parts suppliers are sued too.
We used to have 225 employees back in 1979. Today we have 92.
Rick Sontag owns Unison Industries in Rockford, Illinois, where he designs magnetos for airplanes. These little devices that provide the spark needed to start a plane's engine and keep it running. He says he's sued even when his device had nothing to do with a crash. Government investigators say this plane crashed after the pilot ran out of fuel.
Nevertheless, we were sued as the magneto supplier for that engine.
That's routine. When the lawyers file, they sue everybody, just in case. Usually Sontag and other parts suppliers expect to win the suits, but look at the cost in higher insurance premiums and time.
Each of those companies, in turn, has to supply its own defense. It has to supply its own engineering talent to support the defense, and the cost in terms of hours and manpower is enormous.
That manpower and time might have been used to develop better airplanes. Worse, many companies say that because of the safety tax, they've stopped innovating.
Several years ago, we had developed an electronic ignition product for the piston engine airplane market, which we scrapped. The reason we scrapped the project is that product liability fears led us to decide not to be an innovator in the industry. Since there was no such product today, we were afraid that that fact would be used against us in a lawsuit in the future. As a result, the product's on the shelf.
His fear is that if he invents a safer product, a jury might say, well, that proves the original product wasn't safe enough. So for fear of that suit, he pulls the new product.
We used to spend $20 to $25 million a year in developing or improving small aircraft. We're not doing that anymore.
It goes beyond aviation. Monsanto Corporation invented this new material to replace the asbestos still used in many products like brake linings. The new product would be cheaper and safer. But because asbestos is such a fertile field for lawsuits, Monsanto says it's decided not to release the product. Judge Neely says this fear to innovate is the most dangerous effect of today's liability system.
It has a disastrous effect upon things that you can't see. It has a disastrous effect upon research and development not pursued, products not introduced, jobs not created. And that has an effect upon America's competitive position worldwide. The biggest problem occurs on the frontiers of technology, specifically new vaccines and medical technology.
Vaccines are a good target because even though they save lives, so many people are vaccinated that almost certainly some will suffer bad reactions and some may die. But even if the government says this is a good vaccine, we want Americans to take it. That does not protect the vaccine maker. Anybody can still sue. 8 years ago, 13 American companies made childhood vaccines. Today, most have left the business.
The ones who quit say, because of you, we're not doing important research.
Well, is it important? Have you asked the next question, did they decide to quit making it because what they were making was dangerous to people, and therefore they were losing lawsuits?
But they were looking for good vaccines.
We are not short of vaccines today.
It is true that many vaccines are available, and some companies continue research. But suppose you're traveling to Asia. Your doctor may suggest this vaccine to protect you against the deadly Japanese encephalitis. But you can't buy it. For fear of suits, the Japanese company that makes it will sell it in most every country but the U.S. The biotechnology firm Genentech has decided not to develop new vaccines for diseases like hepatitis. Likewise, American companies have backed away from birth control devices. Searle, the company that pioneered the pill, says, for fear of suits, it's drastically cut back on birth control research. And because of suits over one genuinely bad IUD, fearful companies have stopped selling other IUDs, like the Copper 7. The College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists says the Copper 7's a good product, the best choice for some women. But today it's a choice women don't have.
This lack of choice may turn out to be the biggest cost of the tort liability system.
Today, most public pools have no diving boards. Charities and groups like the Boy Scouts say fewer people are willing to volunteer to be leaders. Towns have cut services. This town in California helped solve its liability problem by closing its police department. The safety tax in the form of higher insurance premiums has persuaded many obstetricians to stop delivering babies. And according to a recent survey, persuaded high schools to cut back on field trips, shop classes, and sports programs. And don't count on the U.S. winning many Olympic gymnastics medals in the future because gymnastics programs keep getting cut.
The YMCAs, the park and recreations, the boys, girls clubs, the high school programs, they are vanishing.
Just this February, the world's biggest seller of gymnastics equipment went out of business because it says America's passion for litigation left it no other choice. Now, does this mean greater safety? Certainly no gymnastics means no gymnastics injuries. But
is that greater safety for your child? Certainly not.
Lawyer Peter Huber wrote this book about the problem. He says tort suits have had an unintended effect. They've made life less safe.
The high schools close their gymnastics programs or their diving programs because as they virtually all have the public schools. Does your child stop playing and stay home and read Dickens? No, probably not. He or she's out there playing in an unsupervised environment, even more dangerous.
Everyone agrees that victims should be compensated. But the current system compensates only some of them. It compensates people who happen to have been injured by someone with money. So who really wins under this system?
Well, lawyers are doing extraordinarily well. There's no doubt about that. Lawyers on both sides, I might add. Plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers. The legal establishment is doing fantastically well. A few people who are badly injured win lottery-like verdicts. Virtually everybody else loses. And the ultimate result for the consumer is not greater safety, but less, and certainly higher prices and much less convenience.
What do you mean not greater safety? If a bad product is removed, we're safer.
good product is removed, we're less safe. If you can't buy new small planes, people fly around in old small planes. That's not more safe, that's less safe.
Without some national standard, product liability law will get bigger and bigger and bigger and more intrusive into American enterprise, and at the same time have a greater and greater chilling effect upon our research and development and technological introductions.
John, can anything be done to stem this hemorrhage of lawsuits and still protect the rights of those actually injured who deserve redress?
Oh, sure. There are lots of ways to do it. In New Zealand, for example, if someone's injured, the government compensates them. If a company does something evil, then you can file criminal charges against that company. In this country, there are lots of proposals. I don't know if they'll pass because the trial lawyers are very powerful in state legislatures. And they could reform it themselves. Their pricing, for example, is crazy. They almost always charge 33%. But look at an airplane crash case. The victims always get paid. It's an open and shut case. They should do those for 2%, yes. but they don't. And if they could find a way to pay people in a few months rather than years, it would be a good system.
I was surprised in your report to find that all this litigation has had the effect of actually inhibiting manufacturers from improving the safety of products or bringing out new safe products.
Absolutely. And if you think about what's made life safe, what makes us live longer, our lifespans have increased 3 months per year in the past 60 years. It's technology, I think. It's not lawsuits that did that.
Remarkable. Thank you, John.
Thanks.